Hey, Shannon, this is James. I had to re-download the new version of Camtasia, so I thought I'd quickly test it out, make a quick video on probably what I think the three biggest things and issues that are facing the IHS, EHR, and really the development and thinking that goes behind that, in really for longevity and what we have. I think the first thing that we have is patient engagement. There seems to be a lack of thought of patient engagement. Instead, it's like a provider-centric design or a facility-centric design. It's not a patient-centric design. I think the reason that this is important, if you really start to think about it, is because, if I get to click, that's my first problem with this. All right, there we go. You got like double click. All right, so I think the first problem when you think about that is you're losing the ability to design for your future. So if you have patients that are totally engaged with that electronic health record, the way it interacts with them, chances are your CEO, your CFO, or any of your other providers aren't going to dump it for a commercial off-the-shelf product. So because we're not thinking ahead, we're losing out in the future. It's easier to make that decision to just say, hey, let's just go, we're going to go with Cerner, we're going to go with Epic. This kind of brings me back to the Summit Snoqualmie. They had a whole entire design concept where they understood that you had to design for the youth. And here's a good example of it. They were designing for their future, really. And doing that, they redesigned their logos. They put like skulls out. Here's the teenage bracket. That's the Olympia beer can. They actually went as far to paint one of their water towers. And they basically incorporated youth. They had free shuttle bus rides up to the mountain from the schools. They would go pick them up. They had all these school things. They had all these benefits that you can get where you get a season's pass, your kid got free lessons, stuff like that. The reason they were doing that was for longevity, was for a future. What they were really trying to do is say, hey, if this is your home mountain, in the future you're going to end up taking your kids back here and saying, hey, this is my home mountain, and I wanted you to see what I saw when I was a little kid. So I think if IHS would look at development in those terms, or OIT per se, would look at development as what is our future and how do we engage and embrace our future, your patient, for one, is never going to go away. That's a good common denominator. Why don't we start with that? Providers, yeah, they're going to be there, but they're going to move around and come and go. So I would say go with a bigger common denominator. Design for that bigger common denominator, and you might have a better future and more longevity. Finally, what I would say is another massive gap that we face with the development. Not necessarily. It's really, again, this goes back to the way we think. What language do CEOs and CFOs speak in? Notice the silence there. Yeah, they speak in money, right? And the problem is what you'll see a CFO or you'll see a CEO or a board. I just witnessed this happen. I just watched a whole entire board of directors make a decision because they didn't have good information. They said, we're done with this, we're going to go to another product. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're transitioning right now. If you're unable to go out and just show the numbers, if you're unable to pull out pretty solid analytics to let people know where they're at, where we are at, how much money are we spending, what is our denial management, how much money are we writing off, how much is going to this, and this, what's our payer mix? If we can't quickly do that and bring that back in a very dynamic manner, if it's not visible, I mean, there literally should be something that is very visible that anyone can sign into and go look at and see what that is with the proper access. We don't do that. We don't have anything close to that, and that can be a big problem when you're doing this, and it's a big decision maker when you move to a commercial off-the-shelf product. And that's what these things are doing. They understand the language of CEOs and CFOs. So if we do not have good third-party billing, good A&R, good back-end products, you can pretty much guarantee that your plug's going to be pulled. Finally, I think one of the biggest things is education and how we train. And when I say education, what I'm talking about is what is scalability and how do we protect knowledge. Right now, our knowledge dissipates; it disappears it's mainly because it's not simple. It's not simple enough. It has not been simplified. Therefore, it's not scalable. We have a very complex kind of way of learning, a very complex way of teaching and passing knowledge within our system. Anyone knows this if you go on the WebExes. Anyone knows this if you attend the classes. the number one problem with this is the fact that we have subject matter experts thinking they're educators and they can teach and deliver the content. What they should do is provide the content, and then you actually give it to trained educators to release the curriculum and the content. So, for example, my wife's an educator, and she would ask the question, well, what happens when you spend a week doing something, you do a test, and 50% of your students fail? And we've seen this recently with coding classes and stuff like that. Well, it's probably a number of things that are not being thought of. Just because we're a doctor or a pharmacist or director of nursing does not mean that we're an expert teacher. And we have to really think about that. And we have to think of ways to kind of spread that knowledge, make it easier to get out there for everybody. And I was always amazed at the Khan Academy at how here was a guy who was, kind of started out teaching his brothers. He was not really an educator. But he, for some reason, had this natural ability to teach, and he would teach at a level that, if you're a physicist listening to it, you got something out of it, and if you are a 6-year-old listening to it, you got something out of it. So you have to be able to teach these subjects that are very broad and complex at the same time, very simple and big at the same time. And he happened to have a lot of skill at that. So he reached out actually to educators to develop curriculums that kind of moved you along at your own pace, videos that would go along with that. And folks have used this now in classrooms. It's like they call it a flipped classroom, where the homework is done in the class, and then they go home and watch all the videos and learn all the content. And then he hooked up with game mechanics folks and game designers, and he said, well, how do we make this fun, and how do we build in progression that the user can go through this at their own level? I guess my question is are we educating and passing knowledge correctly within not only the IHS but also with with OIT, but really with for the survival of our EHR, our RPMS EHR. And these are some of the questions that I've always seen. These are common denominators. These are the reasons why I get called into places. Is we have these same themes over and over again. Hey, so and so used to know how to do that, but he left. That's knowledge transfer. This is too complicated, or we have to send somebody to that class, and the next class is not for 4 months, so we're pretty much without a CAC until we can send this person to that class. Well, you don't have to go to a class to use your iPhone. And the reason I say that, you don't have to take a class to use your iPhone, it's a very intuitive design. Our electronic health record is not an intuitive design. Our electronic health record right now, as is when you open up that first page, you have 200 decisions, 200 buttons that you can click on. That's what I call noise. If you look at your average good design of pathing people through things, what action do you want to take, and you make that action present. So again, I think we got the wrong people being a part of the design process. We have these engineering type brains, these doctor type brains looking at these electronic health records, and we don't really have designers or educators or humans really jumping up and stepping up the fat to design it. So I just thought I'd share some of these ideas real quick with you and test out my new version of Camtasia. Awesome.